That internet money of yours will never amount to anything real, my dad said, clinking his beer bottle against my uncle's. Laughter rippled through the backyard, a wave I'd learned to ride out with a tight smile and a nod. My name's Eli Granger. I'm 27, and for the last 6 years, I've been building blockchain solutions from a cramped one-bedroom in Tulsa, the sort of place where the fridge hums so loud it drowns out your thoughts, and the desk chair bumps into the bed if you lean too far back. Not that my family ever tried to understand what I actually did. Every reunion was a rerun. Someone would ask when I planned to get a real job, then the crypto jokes would start flying. Relics from 2017, stale even when they were new. I learned not to bother correcting them. It was easier to let them laugh than to try to explain something they'd already decided was nonsense. But yesterday, as I sat in that circle of lawn chairs, my phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. The notification was innocuous enough, just a ping from my banking app, but it might as well have been a firecracker. A European tech firm had finalized their acquisition offer. $27.5 million for my optimization protocol, a piece of code I'd written on a sleepless night between Red Bulls and existential dread. 6 years of grinding, 18-hour workdays, living off instant noodles and vending machine snacks, failing more times than I care to count. All of it led to this. My dad leaned in, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Derek says they're always hiring at the dealership. Good benefits, too. His tone was gentle, almost apologetic, as if he was embarrassed for me. I followed his gaze over to Derek, my brother-in-law, decked out in a tailored shirt and showing off a shiny new watch he'd bought selling luxury cars. Derek caught my eye and gave me that look I knew by heart, equal parts pity and bafflement, as if he was watching someone refuse to climb out of a hole. On the drive back to my apartment, my phone buzzed again. A text from my sister Jessica. "Don't mind, Dad. He just worries about you." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and watched the streetlights blur past. The truth was, none of them knew what I'd been working toward. Not really. They saw a stubborn kid chasing a fantasy, not someone who'd poured everything into a vision of the future. When I got home, I opened my laptop, heart pounding. The wire transfer was pending. By Monday, I have more money in my account than everyone at that barbecue combined. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in years, the constant anxiety in my chest eased a little. For the first time, I felt almost peaceful. It didn't start out like this. I taught myself to code at 14, hunched over a battered old laptop my mom found at a garage sale. I'd stay up until the world outside fell silent, devouring everything I could find online. Open source projects, cryptography forums, message boards where people argued about the future of money. My parents chalked it up to another one of my phases, like the astronomy books or the skateboard collecting. He'll grow out of it, they'd say when neighbors asked why their son was always locked away. But I didn't. I finished high school, scraped together a partial scholarship to state, and majored in computer science. The expectation was clear. I'd fall in line, get an internship, start at the bottom, take out a mortgage by 30, maybe have kids by 35. That was the path everyone else seemed to be following, the one my parents understood. But then I stumbled onto blockchain, a wild, unruly idea that seemed to crack open the world. I saw what it could be, not just what it was. I dropped out junior year, just as my classmates were lining up for job fairs and interviews. My dad didn't speak to me for 3 months. My mom tried to understand, but broke down crying more than once. Jessica was a peacemaker, but even she got tired of defending me. Why would you throw away a degree? My dad finally asked when he broke his silence. Your grandfather worked in the oil fields so his kids could go to college. I tried to tell him about decentralized finance, about how blockchain could cut out the middlemen and democratize access. But it was like talking to a wall. Their eyes glassed over. The conversation circled the drain, and eventually I stopped trying. So I worked. While my friends bought houses, got promoted, posted vacation pics from beaches I couldn't afford to visit, I lived on caffeine and code, trying to solve problems that nobody else was even asking. There were times I wondered if I was losing my mind, if my parents were right, and I was just a stubborn kid refusing to grow up. But something kept me going. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was a belief that I could build something that actually mattered. 8 months ago, everything changed. I published a white paper on new protocol, and within days my inbox was overflowing. Venture capitalists, tech bloggers, recruiters. People wanted to talk. Allison from Vertex Capital reached out first. "Your optimization algorithm is groundbreaking," she said on our call. "Have you thought about what this is worth?" I hadn't. I just wanted to solve a puzzle that had been gnawing at me for months. 3 weeks later, the first offer landed. $3 million. It was more money than I'd ever seen, but I turned it down. 6 weeks later, $8 million. Turned it down too. Every time I refused, my anxiety got a little sharper, but so did my sense that I was onto something bigger. Then Jessica called. "Dad's having some health issues," she said. "Nothing serious yet, but he might need surgery." I asked if they needed help. She hesitated, then said they'd manage. After we hung up, I stared at the latest offer, $15 million, and felt empty. What was the point of solving big problems if I couldn't fix the ones in my own family? It gnawed at me, that sense of helplessness. The money, the accolades, they all fell hollow when I thought about my dad struggling to pay medical bills, about my mom losing sleep over what I'd become. 2 days before the family barbecue, I sat across from 5 executives in a virtual boardroom, their faces framed by expensive art and high-rise windows. 6 rounds of negotiations, each more tense than the last, until they finally named their number. $27.5 million, plus a 2-year consulting contract at $180,000 a year. "We need your answer today, Mr. Granger," the CEO said, his voice clipped and impatient. I asked for an hour, then wandered my neighborhood. I passed families grilling in their driveways, kids dribbling basketballs on cracked pavement, parents calling them in for dinner. Ordinary lives. Lives my parents could understand. For a moment, I wondered if I'd missed out on something essential. I went home, signed a contract, and closed the laptop. That should have been the moment everything changed. The culmination of 6 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and stubborn faith. Yet as I sat there, staring at the numbers on the screen, all I felt was a strange, echoing hollowness. I'd built something from nothing, created value that people across the world wanted. I'd proved every doubter wrong. But the people who mattered most, my family, would never really see what I'd done, never truly understand the world I'd spent years building. I realized then that success, at least the way I defined it, didn't come with a parade. It came quietly, in a room lit only by a laptop screen, with no one around to share it with. And for all the zeros in my bank account, that was the part that stung the most. Still, as the sun set outside my window and the city hummed on, a quiet peace settled over me. I knew I'd done something real. Even if nobody else ever quite got it, maybe that was enough. Or maybe, now that I finally had the means, I could start searching for what came next, something beyond just proving everyone wrong. At the reunion, I lingered at the edge of the backyard, watching my family gather around the folding table, red cups in hand, laughter spilling out into the humid evening. They were riffing on the latest headlines. Crypto scams, meme coins, and some YouTube kid who'd turn $1,000 into a Lamborghini. My Uncle Frank, who still wrote checks at the grocery store, asked if I could send him some of that internet money next time. The joke stung a little, but I could see now it wasn't malice. They weren't mocking me. Not really. They just didn't get it. Their world measured success in solid things you could hold. Things you could show off. Derek's Rolex, polished and heavy on his wrist. Kyle's promotion at the bank, which came with a fancy title and a glass office. For them, pride was simple. Something you wore, something you parked in the driveway. For a heartbeat, I imagined pulling out my phone, showing them the 6-figure transfer pending in my wallet. Proof. A trophy. But before I could move, Dad pressed another beer into my palm and clapped my shoulder, his touch a tangle of pride and old worry, as if he wanted to believe I was doing okay but still doubted the ground I walked on was real. For once, I didn't argue. I let the moment pass, let their laughter wash over me without trying to correct or convince. I realized, unexpectedly, that I no longer needed their validation, didn't crave the "I told you so" moment I'd fantasized about for years. Something inside me had shifted, quietly but unmistakably, like a gear slipping into place. I couldn't name it yet, but I felt lighter, less tethered to their expectations. Driving home, I took the old highway out of habit, winding up to the overlook above Tulsa, where the city stretched out like a living circuit board, each light a silent pulse. Sitting there with the engine ticking, I decided, no more big reveals, no gloating, no dramatic speeches about digital fortunes. What did it matter if they never understood? I opened my banking app and, with a few swipes, created a private account. Then I started a list of my notes. My parents, Jessica and her daughter Emma, Uncle Frank, who was still hunting for work, even Derek, because family was complicated and love didn't keep score. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I also knew none of them could ever know it was me. The gift would be in the anonymity, in the freedom it brought them, not the credit it gave me. A month after the acquisition, I found myself in a sleek office in Oklahoma City, sitting across from Olivia, a financial advisor whose entire business was built around people like me, people who'd stumbled into money overnight. She flipped through my plans, eyebrows raised. "Most people want to make a splash when this happens," she said, tapping her pen on the folder. "They want the house, the car, the Instagram vacation." I smiled, a little embarrassed. "That's never been my thing." She nodded, as if she'd already guessed. We mapped out anonymous trusts and family funds, layer protections, and silent donations. I kept my beat-up Honda, my tiny apartment with a chipped linoleum, my morning walks to the corner coffee shop. The only visible change was the calm I carried, knowing my family would never again have to check the mailbox with dread or argue over bills at the dinner table. That was enough for me. Maybe the only thing that really mattered. 3 weeks later, Jessica called. I could hear the strain in her voice before she even spoke. "Emma needs braces. Dad's insurance won't cover his surgery, and Derek's commission just got slashed. I'm drowning, Eli." I told her I could help, already plotting how to quietly cover everything. She hesitated. "Dad doesn't want charity, especially from you. He keeps saying you should get a real job. Stop chasing after crypto dreams." Somehow, that hurt more than I expected. Like a bruise I thought had faded but was still tender. "What did you tell him?" I asked. She sighed. "I told him I wouldn't ask. But I'm desperate." After we hung up, I sat in silence, feeling the old ache of being misunderstood. My dad would rather suffer than accept what he thought was handouts from a son he believed to be failing. The irony was sharp and bitter. The next day, Jessica called again, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Eli, you won't believe this. Some foundation called. They're paying for Dad's surgery. Everything. And Emma just got a scholarship for braces. Someone set it up through her school." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. I'd set up the foundation only yesterday and reached out to the school's principal myself. "That's amazing," I told her. "Maybe your luck's finally turning." She paused, suspicious but hoping. "It's just strange, all at once, you know." "Sometimes life surprises you," I said, and she let it go. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Dude, did you hear about the farm? Grandpa's old place. The one nobody could save from back taxes. The land everyone talked about, but no one could afford to rescue. What about it?" I texted back. "Somebody paid it all off. Anonymous donor. Dad's losing his mind." I leaned back, picturing them celebrating, and replied, "That's incredible. Maybe it's our lucky year." When the family gathered to celebrate, Dad stood up with a trembling glass and tears in his eyes. He gave a toast about miracles and the power of family, about second chances, and a legacy of land passed down through generations. Around the table, everyone speculated about the mystery donor. "Maybe it was Kyle," my aunt said, nudging him. Kyle laughed. "I wish." "Maybe some tech billionaire just felt generous," Derek offered, shooting me a look. Dad caught my eye and grinned. "Definitely not Eli's internet money." And the whole table laughed. But this time the jab didn't sting. I just smiled, raised my glass, and let them have their moment. It felt right, being invisible for once, knowing the truth and not needing anyone else to. 3 months after the sale, my phone rang. Allison from Vert X Capital sounded breathless. "They're rolling out your protocol early," she said. "The numbers are insane. Your bonus just tripled." In a blink, my net worth leapt from $27.5 million to nearly $40 million. I thanked her and sat there, staring at the faded paint on my apartment walls, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. Everything outside looked the same, but inside, the world was different, quieter, steadier. That evening, Mom called. "Come by for dinner. Your dad wants to talk." The familiar anxiety crept in as I drove over, memories of old arguments and quiet disappointments swirling in the dusk. At the house, everything was just as I remembered. The worn welcome mat, the smell of pot roast, the creak in the hallway floor. We ate in near silence, tension humming beneath every word. After dessert, Dad pushed his plate aside, fiddled with his napkin, and took a breath. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice thick with something I couldn't quite name. Regret, hope, maybe even pride. For the first time, I realized I was ready to hear whatever came next. "You've been at this crypto thing for years. Maybe there's more to it than I thought." My dad's voice was softer than I remembered, as if admitting a secret. I set my coffee down, watching him search my face for a reaction. "What changed your mind?" I asked, curiosity and skepticism mixing in my chest. He shrugged, his shoulders tight, almost embarrassed to be vulnerable. "I've been reading up on it. After everything that's happened to our family lately, it got me thinking, maybe there's a whole world out there, stuff happening right under our noses, and we're just missing it. I didn't want to, get left behind." My mom nodded, her hands wrapped around her mug, voice gentle. "Your father thinks technology might be one of those things. We always thought it was just a phase. Maybe we've been too quick to dismiss what you do. People our age, we like what we know. But maybe we need to start learning what we don't." A lump formed in my throat. For so long, my work had been a punchline at family dinners, my explanations interrupted by sighs and changed subjects. Now I could feel the shift. A door cracked open. My dad looked at me, honest in a way he hadn't been since I was a kid. "I still don't get it," he admitted. "But I'm willing to try, if you're willing to explain it again." So I did. For the next hour, I walked him through the basics of blockchain, breaking it down into stories and metaphors, using everything I'd ever learned about making the complicated sound simple. My dad, who'd always seemed uninterested, started asking sharp questions about transparency, about security, about the power it put in the hands of ordinary people. My mom jotted down notes, her brow furrowed like she was back in school. For the first time, I saw them as students, not critics, and I realized I'd never given them enough credit for their willingness to learn. When I left, my dad followed me out to the car. Dusk had settled, and his face was hidden in the shadows. "Son, I've been hard on you," he said, voice low. "I worried you were throwing your life away, chasing something I couldn't understand. But these last few months, I've been forced to look at things differently. Losing friends, getting older, seeing what really matters. It's not about jobs or money. It's about family, about sticking together, even when we don't understand each other." I just nodded, my throat tight with emotion. I couldn't find the words to tell him how much it meant. He put a hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. "Whatever happens with this crypto business, I'm proud of you. Takes guts to stick to what you believe in, even when everyone else doubts you." I don't say enough, but I mean it. Driving home, I realized I'd given my dad something more valuable than money. I'd given him a chance to see me really see me and make his own peace with the path I'd chosen. Maybe that was worth more than any windfall. The next morning, my phone rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "Eli, something weird's going on," she whispered, urgency in her voice. "Derek thinks someone's helping our family out in secret. He's got a whole theory." My heart skipped. Why would he think that? There's been too many coincidences. The medical fund for Mom, Emma's braces finally paid for, the farm taxes cleared. Now Derek just landed a new job, better pay, better hours, out of nowhere. He says it feels like someone's watching over us, pulling strings. I tried to sound casual. Maybe your luck finally turned. She let out a dry laugh. Derek's not buying it. He thinks it's you. He says you've been different lately. Calmer, like someone who's not carrying the same weight. That caught me off guard. Derek might sell cars, but he was sharp, grounded, good at reading people. Me? With what money? That's what I said. Jessica's tone softened. Unless your internet money finally paid off. I changed the subject, but after we hung up, I realized I'd underestimated Derek. All my careful planning, all the ways I tried to be invisible, and still the people closest to me could sense a shift. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was relief, but it was showing, whether I wanted it to or not. 5 months after the acquisition deal, I met Olivia at our usual coffee shop to talk strategy. She slid into the booth, laptop open, eyes keen. The anonymous approach is working, she said, but there's a problem. Your family's starting to notice the pattern. The gifts, the timing, the way things keep getting fixed right when they need it. I nodded, a weight settling in my stomach. My brother-in-law's already suspicious. If he digs too deep, he could connect the dots. You have options, Olivia said, her voice calm but firm. You can keep gifting anonymously, maybe with more space between the gifts to avoid suspicion. Or you can set up a formal family trust, something private, but with enough transparency to answer questions if they come up. Or you could just tell them the truth. Each choice has its own costs. I didn't answer right away. The truth was I was afraid of how money would change the way they saw me, the way we saw each other. I'd seen families torn apart by windfalls, by jealousy, by expectations that no one could meet. I wanted to help, but I didn't want to lose us in the process. Olivia read the hesitation on my face. What's stopping you from telling them? She asked gently. I stared out the window. At first, I didn't want to rub it in. I didn't want them to think I'd been holding out or that I thought I was better. Now, I'm afraid it'll change everything. Money has a way of doing that. It draws lines where there weren't any before. She nodded, understanding more than I could say. After days of wrestling with it, I decided to split the difference. I'd set up a trust, something formal but discreet, and I'd reveal my role slowly. Started with the one person I trusted most, the one who'd always been in my corner. The next day, I asked Jessica to meet me downtown. She arrived looking anxious, her eyes scanning my face for clues. You're scaring me, she said, half joking. You never asked to meet like this. I slid a folder across the table. I need you to see this. She opened it, brow furrowed, flipping through the documents. What am I looking at? It's a trust fund for Emma's education, fully funded, with room for whatever she needs. Jessica's eyes widened as she took in the numbers, her fingers trembling slightly. This is millions. Where did this come from? Please tell me you're not mixed up in anything dangerous. I laughed, letting the tension out. No. Remember my blockchain project? The one everyone joked about, the one Dad said would never pay the bills. She stared, then realization dawned. You sold it. I nodded. 5 months ago. $27.5 million. Her coffee cup froze in midair. She blinked, disbelief giving way to wonder. Say that again? So I told her. Everything, the acquisition, the consulting job, the anonymous gifts, the months of secrecy. When I finished, Jessica just shook her head, a mix of awe and exasperation. So all this time, while Dad was trying to get you a real job, you were making moves bigger than any of us imagined and helping everyone behind the scenes. And you never said a word. I shrugged, suddenly shy. I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted everyone to get what they needed without feeling like they owed me something. I just wanted to help. She reached over, squeezed my hand, her eyes shining. You always were the quiet, complicated one. I should have known you'd find a way. In the weeks that followed, Jessica became my partner in this strange new chapter. She started dropping stories about blockchain success into conversations with our parents, gently shifting their perception. She found ways to explain things in their language, about hard work, about luck, about how new technology could sometimes reward those who dare to dream. She didn't make a big announcement, but slowly she planted seeds. We worked out the details of the bigger trust, making sure it would support not just immediate needs, but future dreams, education, health emergencies, even seed money for new ventures if anyone wanted to try. We agreed to set expectations early, to keep things clear and fair. I realized as we worked that sharing this with Jessica, letting her in, was giving me something I hadn't expected, a sense of belonging, of not having to carry the weight alone. One evening, after a long day of paperwork and planning, Jessica looked at me and said, "You know, maybe this isn't just about money. Maybe this is your way of bringing us back together, giving us a reason to talk, to plan, to dream again." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Maybe she was right. Maybe the money was just the beginning, a tool to heal old wounds and build something new. For the first time, I didn't feel like the outsider, the weirdo with the crazy ideas. I felt like part of a family, finally moving forward together. One evening at dinner, the conversation took a familiar turn. My mom, always curious but a bit skeptical, asked Derek if he could shed some light on cryptocurrency. She'd heard the word tossed around but couldn't quite grasp what it meant, especially with all the news about digital coins and people making or losing fortunes. I could tell Derek was about to launch into one of his analogies, but I saw my chance. I leaned in, eager to finally have everyone's attention on something I actually understood. I started explaining the basics, how cryptocurrency is like money on the internet, but not controlled by any government, and how blockchain technology keeps it secure. For the first time, my dad looked at me differently, like maybe I knew something valuable, something worth listening to. It was a small moment, but it meant a lot. Later that week, I suggested we have a family meeting, officially to talk about the farm's future, but in reality, I wanted us to have a more open conversation about financial planning. Our family had always been practical, land, hard work, and saving for a rainy day, but I'd realized we didn't talk much about planning for the long term. So I brought in a financial advisor, not Olivia, since I want to keep things unbiased, but someone patient who could break down trust, estate planning, and protecting what we built. My goal wasn't just to talk about cryptocurrency, but to get everyone thinking about how our choices today shape tomorrow. As the meeting went on, I saw the gears turning. My family started asking real questions, not just nodding along. They were warming up to the idea of new ways to manage money, and, maybe more importantly, to the idea that I could be the one to help them figure out. The last piece of my plan fell into place when Jessica mentioned that Emma's middle school was hosting a career day. "Would you consider talking about being a developer?" she asked, giving me a look that told me she understood how much it would mean for me to share my story. It felt like the perfect opportunity, especially since career day was scheduled exactly 6 months after I'd signed the acquisition deal. Jessica made sure our parents would be there for Emma's big day, and Derek said he'd come along too, mostly out of curiosity, to see what I'd say in front of the crowd. Standing at the front of that classroom, surrounded by 12-year-olds and their parents, I realized how far I'd come. 6 years ago, I dropped out of college to chase an idea no one in my family understood, least of all me sometimes. I started my talk by telling them that how everyone thought I was making a huge mistake, how my parents worried constantly, and how it sometimes felt like I was letting everyone down. I glanced at my parents in the audience. Even now, I could see the anxiety on their faces as they remembered those uncertain days. The kids fidgeted in their seats, but the parents, especially the ones who looked like they'd sacrificed a lot for their own kids, leaned in. I explained what I'd been working on, building a blockchain protocol, a way to make cryptocurrency transactions faster, more transparent, and more secure. I told them it wasn't glamorous. Most days, I lived on ramen noodles, skipped family holidays to fix bugs, and wondered if I was wasting my time. People joked about my internet money, and I laughed with them, but deep down, I believe I was onto something important. A couple of kids snickered, but I smiled and kept going, wanting them to see that sometimes the weird ideas are the ones worth pursuing. Then I dropped the number. 6 months ago, I sold my company for $27.5 million. The room went silent. I saw my dad's jaw literally drop, my mom cover mouth, and Derek's eyes go wide as saucers. But I didn't want the story to end there. I told them that the money wasn't the real point. What mattered was the journey, the risk, and the faith to keep working when everyone else doubted you. Sometimes the person who seems like they're floundering, driving an old Honda, wearing the same faded clothes, skipping family events, is quietly building something that could change everything. To wrap up, I announced that I was funding a tech grant for school, my own money, to make sure every kid who wanted to learn coding could have a computer and access to classes. I wanted them to know that no one should be held back from learning about the future, no matter where they came from. When I finished, Emma ran up and hugged me tight, her pride and excitement more rewarding than any check I'd ever cashed. My parents approached, stunned. $27.5 million? My dad whispered, as if saying it out loud might make it disappear. I grinned and told him that with bonuses, the total was closer to $42 million. My mom's eyes filled with tears. My dad looked like he might cry. "To the farm taxes," he said quietly. "Emma's braces, my surgery." I nodded, wanting them to know they never had to worry again. "That was all you?" he asked. "I just wanted to help," I replied. Derek, always a practical joker, laughed as he shook my hand. "All this time, I've been trying to convince you to work at the dealership." I smiled back. They were good offers, just not my path. 2 weeks later, I helped my parents move into their new home. Nothing extravagant, just a comfortable, accessible place close to Jessica and Emma, with no stairs to bother Dad's knee. This time, I bought it to the family trust, and everyone knew up front. As we unpacked boxes in the garage, my dad paused, holding a box of his old fishing gear. "I still don't really get what you invented," he admitted, "but I'm trying." I smiled. "That's all I wanted, for you to try." He nodded, looking at me with a mixture of pride and regret. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, what you were building." I shook my head. "You couldn't have known." He sighed. "Maybe not, but I could have trusted you more." That night, we all gathered on the patio for dinner. Derek talked excitedly about the coding classes he'd signed up for, insisting it was never too late to learn something new. Jessica had quit her high-stress job, something she'd dreamed about for years, and started her own small practice, helping families with their financial questions, with a little seed money from me. Emma, full of confidence, was teaching my mom how to set up a Bitcoin wallet and buy her first fraction of a coin. I looked around the table and realized how much had changed. Yes, the money made many things easier, but what mattered most was the respect we now had for each other, for the different, sometimes unconventional ways we could contribute and succeed. After dinner, I slipped away to watch the sunset over Tulsa. The sky was brushed with orange and purple, and for the first time in years, I felt fully at ease. My phone buzzed with an email from Allison. Another company was offering to hire me triple my last rate. I smiled and set the phone aside. That could wait. My dad came out onto the patio, standing quietly beside me. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Just enjoying the moment," I said. He nodded, and for a long time we just stood there, saying nothing. Then he looked at me, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said. "Not because of the money, but because you stuck with it when it was hard, and you did it your way." I smiled at him. "I learned that from you, you know." He put his arm around my shoulders. A few months ago, I would have felt awkward, unsure of my place. Now, it just felt right, like we'd finally reached a new understanding, one built not just on blood, but on faith in each other's dreams. "Come back to the table," Dad called, his voice softer than usual, carrying that note of curiosity I'd only heard a handful of times. "Your mom wants to know if she should be paying more attention to this whole crypto thing. She's been hearing about it for years. Maybe there's something to it after all." I set my coffee down, watching the steam curl. "What changed your mind?" I asked, not quite hiding my skepticism. My family had always been practical, almost allergic to buzzwords and online fads. He shrugged, looking sheepish, almost like a kid caught sneaking dessert. "I've been reading up on it," he admitted, which made my eyebrows shoot up. "Look, With all the weird good luck our families had lately, I started thinking, maybe there are things going on that we just don't understand yet. Technology's changing everything. Maybe we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss it. Mom nodded, her hands folded carefully in her lap. Your dad thinks maybe technology is part of it all. Maybe we were too quick to write off what you do. We didn't want you chasing after something that would hurt you. Her voice quavered, and I realized the years of subtle dismissals had come from worry, not contempt. That understanding landed heavily. I felt my throat tighten. Is that right? I asked, softer now. Dad shook his head, a rueful smile on his lips. I still don't get it. Not really. But I want to. If you're willing to explain it again, from the beginning, maybe this time, I'll keep up. So I did. For the next hour, I walked him through the basics. Blockchain, decentralization, how money could move without banks, how trust could be built without middlemen. Dad asked questions that told me he'd spent real hours trying to wrap his mind around all this, about cryptography, about how the value was determined, about what made it different from stocks or gold. He challenged me, but not to argue. He genuinely wanted to understand. Mom took notes like she was auditing a college class, jotting down words to Google later. I'd never seen them so focused on my world, my work. It was almost disorienting. When I finally stood to leave, Dad followed me outside, the late afternoon sun slipping behind the barn. He was quiet, hands jammed in his pockets. Son, he said, his voice almost breaking, I know I've been hard on you. Maybe I thought being tough would keep you safe. I was scared you'd ruin your life chasing something I couldn't understand. But these last few months, all our luck, all these changes, they made me look at things again. Turns out jobs and money aren't the only things that matter. It's family. It's believing in each other, even when it feels risky. I nodded, the knot in my throat making words impossible. He looked at me, eyes shining. Whatever happens with this crypto stuff, I want you to know I'm proud of you. You stuck to your guns. You believed in yourself. That takes guts most people don't have. Driving home, it hit me. Without even meaning to, I'd given Dad something more valuable than money. I'd given him the chance to see me for who I was, to find his own path to understanding, his own pride. That realization felt like an unexpected gift, one I'd never thought to offer. The next morning, Jessica called early, her voice tense, like she was trying to keep from being overheard. Eli, something weird's going on, she said. Derek's convinced someone is helping our family out behind the scenes. Why does he think that? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She rattled off a list, each item more improbable than the last. The medical fund for Dad's surgery. Emma's braces paid off. The farm taxes just disappearing. Now, Derek gets a job offer out of nowhere, better pay, better benefits. Like someone made a call for him. It's too many good things. All at once. He's sure someone's pulling strings. I forced a casual tone. Maybe your luck turned. She laughed, but it was a brittle sound. Derek thinks it's you. He says you've been different lately. Calmer, like someone who doesn't have to worry anymore, or at least not in the same way. I hesitated. Me? With what money? Jessica let out a real laugh this time. That's what I said. Unless your internet money finally paid off. I changed the subject, but as soon as I hung up, I realized I'd underestimated Derek. He might sell cars, but he had an uncanny instinct for reading people, spotting the undercurrents. For the first time, I wonder if my efforts to stay anonymous were actually putting distance between me and the people I cared about, making them suspicious instead of grateful. 5 months after signing the acquisition deal, I met with Olivia, my financial advisor. She sat across from me in a glass-walled office, flipping through spreadsheets and legal documents. The anonymous donations are working, she said, tapping her pen on the table. But if you want to keep giving, people are starting to notice. Your family, especially. I nodded. My brother-in-law is already getting suspicious. She laid it out for me, her tone gentle but direct. You have options. You could keep giving anonymously, but space the gifts out more. Or you can set up a family trust with explicit rules about privacy, about how and when people learn what's happening. I glanced at my parents in the back. They looked nervous, remembering all the arguments, the late-night phone calls, the times I'd missed holidays to chase some fragment of code. The kids fidgeted, but the adults leaned in. I described the long hours, the ramen noodles, the relentless debugging, and the constant jokes about internet money. A ripple of laughter went through the room. Then I paused and told them, 6 months ago, I sold my company for $27.5 million. The effect was immediate. Silence washed over the room. My dad just stared, his mouth open. My mom raised her hand to her lips, eyes wide with disbelief. Derek, always a practical one, looked at me like he was seeing someone new. But I made it clear that the money wasn't the real point. The lesson I wanted to pass on was that success comes in many forms, and sometimes it looks nothing like what people expect. I told him about driving an old Honda, wearing the same t-shirt every day, and being dismissed as a dreamer, until the world caught up. I wanted those kids to know that it's okay to take the road less traveled, to build something new even if nobody else gets it at first. As I wrapped up, I announced a tech grant for the school, promising that every student would have access to a computer and the chance to learn coding if they wanted. It was more than a gesture. It was a way to pay forward the faith I wish my own community had shown me from the start. Emma ran up and hugged me, beaming with pride. That was awesome, Uncle Eli. My parents approached slowly, still stunned. My dad asked, voice barely above a whisper, $27.5 million, is that true? I nodded. Actually, with the bonuses from the deal, it's closer to $42 million now. My mother burst into tears, and my dad seemed on the verge of it himself. He immediately started counting off all the ways the money could help. The farm's taxes, Emma's braces, his upcoming surgery. I nodded, wanting to keep it simple. I just wanted to help. Derek stepped in, shaking my hand with a wide grin. I knew you were up to something, but this, he laughed. All this time, I've been offering you jobs at my dealership. I squeezed his hand back. They were good offers, just not my path. 2 weeks later, I was helping my parents move into their new house, which was nothing extravagant, but offered comfort and security. And, importantly, no stairs to my dad's knee after surgery. This time, the deed was in the family trust, and everyone knew exactly how it had happened. As we unpacked boxes in the garage, surrounded by decades of memories, my dad stopped, clutching a battered old box of fishing gear. I still don't really understand what you built, but I'm trying to learn, he admitted. It was all I ever wanted, to be seen, to be understood, to have my family believe in me. That's all I ever asked, I told him quietly. He hesitated, the weight of old doubts in his eyes. I'm sorry I didn't see what you were building. I shook my head. You couldn't have known. No, he said, but I could have trusted you more. That evening, we gathered on the back patio for dinner. Derek talked excitedly about the coding classes he'd enrolled in, insisting that it's never too late to learn something new. Jessica, finally free from her draining accounting job, had started her own financial consulting practice with some seed money I'd given her, and she was already helping other families organize their futures. Emma showed my mom how to buy her first Bitcoin on her phone, her fingers flying over the screen as she explained wallets and passwords. As I watched them, my family, now more connected and open to new possibilities, I realized the real transformation wasn't about the money. Yes, our circumstances had changed, and the stress of old debts and worries had eased. But the more profound shift was the respect that had grown between us. Respect for what I'd built, for the risks I'd taken, and for the idea that success can look very different from what we'd always been taught. It was a respect that came not just from pride, but from a new willingness to see each other's dreams and try to understand them. Later, I slipped away to the edge of the yard, letting the warm Oklahoma breeze wash over me as the sky turned orange and purple over Tulsa. I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. My phone buzzed. An email from Allison, telling me another company wanted to talk, offering triple my current consulting rate. I smiled and put the phone away. The future could wait a little longer. Moments later, my dad joined me outside, his steps slow but steady. "Everything okay?" he asked. I nodded, taking in the fading light and the laughter drifting from patio. "Just enjoying the moment," I said. He looked at me, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. Your grandfather would have been proud, not because of the money, but because you stuck with it when nobody else believed. I smiled, feeling the truth of it. I learned that from you, I said, and meant it. He put his arm around my shoulders, a gesture that, not so long ago, would have felt awkward. But now it felt natural. It felt like coming home. Come on back to the table, he said, his tone light but inviting. Your mom wants to know if she should buy Ethereum next. The question, unexpected and tinged with curiosity, made me burst out laughing, a sound that seemed to bridge the gap between us, filling the room with warmth. As I trailed after him, I glanced around at the faces gathered at the table. People who had always been present in my life, through quiet dinners and noisy celebrations, through moments of misunderstanding and support. Yet, for the first time, I sensed an openness in their eyes, a willingness to engage with my world, the world of cryptocurrencies, of shifting markets and digital futures, that had once seemed foreign to them. Maybe it was just a simple question about Ethereum, but beneath it was something deeper, an effort to connect, to understand, to see me as I truly was. I realized, as I took my seat among them, that family could surprise you, could reach across generations and interests to find new ways of belonging. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and hesitant curiosity, I felt more seen and understood than ever before.